In this video, I'm about to show you 35 dairy brands you ought to avoid at all costs, and why, as well as 10 you should actually be picking up, starting off with number 35, Blue Bell. When it comes to ice cream in the South, Blue Bell is practically a household name. Founded in 1907 in Brenham, Texas, this creamery built its reputation on homemade-style flavors like homemade vanilla and cookies and cream. For decades, families across Texas and neighboring states swore by Blue Bell, filling their freezers with its classic pints and half-gallons. But the truth behind Blue Bell isn't nearly as sweet. In 2015, the brand suffered one of the deadliest food safety scandals in U.S. dairy history, when a listeria outbreak linked to its products led to multiple hospitalizations and 3 tragic deaths. Every single item was recalled, factories were shut down, and in 2020, the company pled guilty to distributing contaminated food, paying over $17 million in fines, the second largest penalty ever in a food safety case. Even today, Blue Bell remains loaded with sugar, calories, and fat, making it one of the worst indulgences you could bring home. Nostalgia aside, this is one brand better left in the freezer aisle. Number 34, Kraft Singles. Kraft Singles are as American as apple pie, stacked in lunchboxes, slapped on burgers, and melted into grilled cheese sandwiches for generations. But let's be honest here. This isn't cheese. Not even close. The government literally won't let Kraft call it cheese. The label has to read pasteurized prepared cheese product because it's a mashup of milk leftovers, oils, emulsifiers, and stabilizers. That smooth, gooey melt we all grew up with? That's chemistry at work, not real dairy craftsmanship. And while the nostalgia runs deep, every slice is loaded with sodium and fillers that do your health no favors. It gets worse. In 2023, Kraft recalled more than 80,000 cases because the wrapper was sticking to the slice and creating a choking hazard. Imagine nearly choking on the plastic film before you even get to the fake cheese. Between the recalls, the additives, and the not really cheese label, Kraft Singles are a reminder that some American classics are better left in the past. Number 33, Cheez Whiz. Cheez Whiz might be one of the most famous foods America ever invented. A bright orange, squeezable sauce in a jar that promises instant cheesiness on nachos, hot dogs, or even straight from the spoon. But here's the ugly truth. Cheez Whiz is about as far from real cheese as you can get. It's loaded with emulsifiers, stabilizers, artificial flavors, and enough sodium to make your blood pressure spike just by looking at the label. The brand sells itself as convenient, but what you're really getting is a chemical cocktail engineered to taste cheesy without actually being cheese. And that flavor? It comes with a cost. More processed oils than dairy, plus preservatives that stretch its shelf life far beyond what nature ever intended. It's not the kind of product that belongs on your sandwich. It's the kind of thing that belongs in a lab experiment. For years, Cheez Whiz has been marketed as fun and easy. But when you strip away the nostalgia, what's left is a jar of orange sludge, better off staying on the store shelf. Number 32, Nesquik. Nesquik has been a childhood favorite for decades. The bunny mascot, the bright yellow bottle, the idea that you're drinking milk so it must be good for you. But don't be fooled. An 8-ounce bottle of Nesquik chocolate milk can pack over 20 grams of sugar, and most people don't stop at just 8 ounces. That's nearly as much sugar as a candy bar, disguised as a wholesome drink. And it's not just the sugar bomb. Depending on the version you buy, you'll find additives like artificial flavors and stabilizers, all wrapped up in marketing aimed squarely at kids. Parents grab it thinking it's a source of calcium and protein, but in reality, you're giving your body a glucose rush, followed by the crash. For older adults, it's even worse. Sugary drinks like this can fuel weight gain, blood sugar spikes, and inflammation. Nesquik might sell itself as fun, nostalgic, and harmless, but at the end of the day, it's dessert in a bottle, and one you're better off leaving on the shelf. Number 31, Velveeta. Velveeta has been marketed for decades as the ultimate liquid gold, the block of orange you melt down for queso, mac and cheese, or a quick dip. But peel back the shiny wrapper and you'll find it's not really cheese at all. In fact, by law, it can't be labeled as cheese. The box has to say pasteurized prepared cheese product because what you're actually getting is a concoction of milk byproducts, oils, emulsifiers, and stabilizers designed to behave like cheese. That signature melt, it's pure engineering. And while the texture might feel nostalgic, What's inside is a high-sodium, ultra-processed slab that does more harm than good. Velveeta has even faced recalls in the past for spoilage risks, raising questions about how stable that liquid gold really is. The truth is simple. Velveeta isn't cheese, and it isn't doing your health any favors. It's a lab creation dressed up in nostalgia, and one of the easiest dairy products to cut out of your cart. Number 30. Breyers. Breyers used to sell itself as the good guy of the ice cream aisle. The classic black carton with the vanilla bean scoop on the front, the brand that bragged about being all natural. But take a closer look today and you'll notice something alarming. A lot of Breyers products don't even qualify as ice cream anymore. Instead, the carton is stamped with the words, frozen dairy dessert. Translation? Less real cream, more gums, stabilizers, and cheap fillers like corn syrup solids. That clean image from years past has been replaced by a lab-built formula designed to save money, not give you quality. Fans who grew up loving Breyers swear the taste has gone downhill, and they're not wrong. Even the so-called light or no sugar added versions are loaded with artificial sweeteners and texture agents to make up for what's missing. Breyers might look familiar in the freezer, but the truth is it's a shadow of what it once was, and one more reason to be skeptical of the all-natural label. Number 29. Oikos. Greek yogurt started as a health trend. Thick, tangy, loaded with protein. Oikos rode that wave hard. But then came the dessert flavors, and that's where everything went sideways. These cups aren't about balance or nutrition anymore. They're about candy bars hiding under a layer of yogurt. Cookie crumbles, brownie chunks, caramel swirls. It reads more like an ice cream sundae menu than a dairy snack. The trick here is simple. Oikos slaps the word Greek on the label so shoppers think they're making a smarter choice. But by the time you add up the sugars, the toppings, and the calories, you're basically eating a pint of ice cream in a smaller container. And because it still carries that protein branding, people tend to eat it without guilt, which makes it even sneakier. At the end of the day, Oikos dessert-style yogurts aren't fuel. They're just another way the dairy aisle sells you sugar with a side of marketing. Number 28. Sargento Balanced Breaks. Sargento pitched balanced breaks as the perfect snack for grown-ups, a tidy little tray of cheese, nuts, and dried fruit that feels like a smarter option than chips or candy. The packaging screams moderation and balance. But flip it over and you'll see the truth. These packs cram 180 to 190 calories into a couple of bites, along with high sodium, added sugars from the candied nuts or chocolate pieces, and a surprisingly low amount of protein for the price you're paying. The real problem isn't that they're the worst snack in the world, it's the way they're marketed. People grab these thinking they're making a healthy choice, when in reality, you'd be better off tossing a piece of real cheese and a handful of almonds into a baggie yourself. At least then you'd skip the added sugars and preservatives, not to mention saving money. Sargento wants you to believe it's handing you portion control. What you're really buying is convenience with a side of sugar, sodium, and clever marketing. Number 27. Yoplait. Few brands shaped the American yogurt aisle like Yoplait. Through the 80 seconds and 90 seconds, it wasn't just sold as food, it was sold as a lifestyle. Their commercials showed smiling women in bright kitchens, acting like a 6-ounce cup of Yoplait was the secret to health, energy, and a slimmer waistline. For a whole generation, Yoplait wasn't yogurt, it was diet culture in a plastic cup. But pull back the marketing curtain, and the numbers tell the real story. 1 cup of Yoplait Original Strawberry packs around 18 grams of sugar, about the same as a candy bar. And while the front of the package highlights calcium and vitamin D, the back reveals a long list of sweeteners, thickeners, and artificial flavors that keep costs down and shelf life up. That so-called healthy choice was spiking blood sugar long before people even knew what glycemic index meant. The truth is, Yoplait wasn't created to nourish. It was created to sell an image, and decades later, that image looks more like a marketing trick than a healthy habit. Number 26. Cabot. Cabot has built its reputation on being farmer-owned, rooted in Vermont tradition, and producing some of the most award-winning cheddars in the country. Their marketing leans hard on that image. Rolling green hills, family farms, and the idea that when you buy Cabot, you're supporting something wholesome and authentic. And to be fair, their classic sharp cheddar blocks do live up to the hype. But here's where things go sideways. The brand doesn't just sell cheddar blocks anymore. Walk down the dairy aisle and you'll see Cabot shredded cheese blends, flavored spreads, and grab-and-go snack packs. These products look like premium artisanal cheese. But check the labels and you'll find a different story. Anti-caking agents to keep shreds from clumping, stabilizers to extend shelf life, and sodium levels that turn a handful of farm cheese into a blood pressure nightmare. Their flavored spreads often contain unnecessary oils and preservatives that push them far from the wholesome cheddar image they advertise. That's the real issue with Cabot. Not that every product is terrible, but that the brand sells you the Vermont purity story while quietly pushing processed convenience items under the same trusted name. Number 25. Great Value. Walmart's Great Value brand dominates the shelves in nearly every category, and dairy is no exception. From milk to cheese to ice cream, it's the budget option millions of families toss into their carts without a second thought. The promise is right there in the name: value. But here's the catch. With Great Value dairy products, you often get exactly what you pay for. Take their ice creams. Many cartons aren't even labeled as ice cream, they're called frozen dairy dessert, because the recipes cut corners on cream and load up on gums, stabilizers, and corn syrup solids. The result is a cheaper product that technically qualifies as dairy but doesn't deliver the same quality. And it's not just the frozen aisle. Their shredded cheeses often contain more anti-caking agents than you'd expect, and flavored milks can carry a heavy sugar load while still wearing the Great Value label. The issue isn't that Walmart is trying to trick you, it's that their dairy line is built to hit the lowest possible price point, even if that means sacrificing quality. For your health, cheap and cheerful can easily become cheap and costly. Number 24. Land O'Lakes. When most people hear Land O'Lakes, they think of butter, the gold foil box that's been in American refrigerators for generations. And to be fair, plain butter is simple: cream and salt, nothing unusual. But the brand is much bigger than butter, and that's where the problems start. Land O'Lakes sells a wide line of processed cheeses, spreads, and flavored products that stray far from the wholesome image on their butter boxes. Their American cheese slices, for example, aren't really cheese at all. They're processed products loaded with emulsifiers, oils, and stabilizers designed to melt perfectly on burgers, but do your health no favors. Their spreadable tubs often add vegetable oils and preservatives to stretch the product further, while their flavored lines can bring unnecessary sodium and additives into something that used to be simple. The disconnect is sharp. The brand leans on its reputation as a trusted butter maker, but much of what sits in the dairy aisle under the Land O'Lakes name is far from pure. It's a case of a household name cashing in on brand trust while quietly filling your cart with processed shortcuts. Number 23. Haagen-Dazs. Haagen-Dazs has built its reputation on being the premium choice in the freezer aisle. The brand leans on its European-sounding name, sleek packaging, and short ingredient lists to suggest quality and sophistication. And compared to bargain tubs full of gums and stabilizers, it does look cleaner. But don't mistake premium for healthy. A simple flavor like Haagen-Dazs vanilla still delivers about 270 calories and 18 grams of fat in just half a cup, and let's be honest, nobody stops at half a cup. Eat a whole pint and you're pushing over 1,000 calories, along with a day's worth of saturated fat and sugar. That's the hidden trick with Haagen-Dazs. They sell indulgence under the cover of minimal ingredients. Yes, you're getting real cream and sugar, but you're also getting an artery-clogging load that rivals fast food desserts. For older adults who grew up trusting the simpler is better philosophy, Haagen-Dazs feels safer than a neon-colored tub. In reality, it's just as much of a calorie bomb, only dressed up in a tuxedo. Premium packaging doesn't change the facts. Haagen-Dazs is luxury ice cream, but nutritionally, it's still one of the worst deals in the freezer. Number 22. Borden. Borden is a name a lot of Americans grew up with. Elsie the cow on the package. Promises of wholesome dairy, and the sense that this was the family-friendly brand in the cheese aisle. But dig into their single slices, and you'll quickly see the same problems that haunt Kraft. By law, Borden singles aren't even considered cheese. They fall under the category of pasteurized prepared cheese product, which is basically a polite way of saying heavily processed. Each slice is engineered for perfect meltability with emulsifiers, stabilizers, and added oils. That means what looks like a simple slice of cheddar is really a lab-crafted product designed to stretch shelf life and deliver consistency, not nutrition. Sodium levels are sky high, and like other processed cheese slices, the protein and calcium you expect from real dairy take a backseat to fillers. The tragedy with Borden is that the brand still trades on its heritage and trust. People see Elsie the cow and think farm fresh. In reality, these singles are as industrial as it gets. Another processed shortcut hiding behind nostalgia. Number 21. Turkey Hill. Turkey Hill likes to dress itself up as the friendly small-town brand. The carton with the country-style lettering that makes you think you're buying something homespun and wholesome. The truth? It's anything but. Crack open one of those half-gallon tubs and you're not scooping up old-fashioned cream and sugar. You're digging into a formula bulked up with corn syrup, gums, and stabilizers that keep the texture smooth and the cost dirt cheap. That traditional ice cream flavor? More like frozen sugar and artificial flavorings holding hands? A single serving piles on over 20 grams of sugar and, let's be real, who stops at just half a cup? By the time you've had a couple scoops, you've basically eaten dessert for 3. The real issue is the trick they're playing. Turkey Hill sells nostalgia. The logo says farm fresh treat, but the carton delivers industrial filler disguised as ice cream. It's not wholesome, it's not premium, it's just a cheaper way to sell you frozen sugar under the illusion of tradition. Turkey Hill looks like comfort food in the freezer aisle, but underneath, it's just another brand cashing in on trust while cutting corners. Number 20. Dean's Dairy. Dean's is one of those names that just blends into the background of American life. You've seen it on the little milk cartons in school cafeterias, in the grocery cooler, maybe even in the office fridge. It's always been there, which is exactly how it built trust, by being invisible, familiar, and everywhere at once. But here's the part nobody talks about. That trust is built on branding, not on quality. Dean's chocolate and strawberry milks, they can hit 40 grams of sugar in a single serving. More sugar than a can of soda, only dressed up as milk. Their creamers and blends aren't much better, stuffed with gums and stabilizers so the product lasts longer on shelves than it should. And behind the scenes, Dean's hasn't exactly been squeaky clean. The company has been tied up in lawsuits and price-fixing scandals that show just how far they'll go to protect profit over people. So when you see Dean's, you're not looking at a safe, reliable brand. You're looking at a corporation that built its empire by blending in, selling you sugar in a carton, and banking on the fact that most people won't bother to check the label. Number 19. YoCrunch. YoCrunch might look like just another yogurt cup in the dairy aisle, but don't be fooled by its placement next to healthier options. This brand, now owned by Danone, built its entire identity on one gimmick: mixing candy into yogurt and passing it off as a snack. It sounds fun, Oreo crumbles, M&Ms, cookie dough bits, but nutritionally it's closer to a dessert than a dairy food. Take their M&M's flavor as an example. A 6-ounce cup comes in at around 180 calories, with a staggering 28 grams of sugar, 20 of those added, and only 6 grams of protein. For comparison, a plain cup of low-fat yogurt usually carries about 7 to 12 grams of sugar total, most of it natural milk sugar, not the candy-level hit YoCrunch delivers. Even their cookie dough version, which looks lighter on the surface, still gives you 16 grams of sugar for a tiny serving with barely 3 grams of protein. And let's not forget the list of modified starches, preservatives, and artificial colors that come bundled with those candy toppings. Number 18. Signature Select. You've seen it 100 times. You walk into Safeway or Albertsons, wander down the freezer aisle, and there it is. Signature Select. The carton looks sharp. The flavor names sound fancy. Caramel brownie overload, double cookie crunch, and the price makes you think you've hacked the system. Why pay Haagen-Dazs money when you can get premium ice cream for a few bucks less? Here's the catch. Once you scoop it out, you'll notice it doesn't taste quite the same. That's because Signature Select often pads its recipes with corn syrup, gums, and stabilizers to make up for the lack of real cream. In fact, some of their tubs don't even qualify as ice cream under FDA rules. They're sold as frozen dairy desserts instead. And the nutrition? A single serving can slam you with over 20 grams of sugar and calorie counts that rival Ben & Jerry's, only without the quality. Signature Select is the classic case of you get what you pay for. The packaging says indulgence, the price says bargain, but the scoop in your bowl, that just says cheap. Number 17. Activia. Activia has spent years convincing Americans that it's not just yogurt, it's medicine for your gut. The commercials practically made probiotics a household word, promising better digestion if you ate a cup a day. And sure, plain yogurt with live cultures can be great for gut health, but the problem with Activia isn't the bacteria. It's everything else packed into the flavored cups. Take Activia Strawberry, one of their best sellers. A single 4-ounce serving carries around 12 grams of sugar, and most people eat the bigger containers, doubling that to 24 grams before you know it. Compare that to a plain Greek yogurt, which has about 5-7 grams of natural sugar from lactose and far more protein. With Activia, you're basically spiking your blood sugar in the name of probiotics. It's a classic health halo. People grab Activia thinking they're making a smart, functional choice. Good for digestion, must be good for me. But the added sugar cancels out much of the benefit. And the artificial flavors and thickeners don't help either. Number 16, Ben and Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's built its entire brand on being over the top. From half-baked to the Tonight Dough, the cartons read more like dessert buffets than ice cream flavors. And people love them for it. Big chunks of brownies, cookie dough swirls, candy pieces, caramel ribbons. But let's be real. Nutritionally, these pints are some of the worst offenders in the freezer aisle. Take a pint of peanut butter cup. You're staring at nearly 1,400 calories, over 90 grams of fat, and 100 grams of sugar. That's not dessert, that's an entire day's worth of calories crammed into a paper tub. Even the lighter flavors hover around 1,000 calories a pint. And while the brand gets credit for using real ingredients instead of gums or stabilizers, the bottom line is simple. The sheer volume of sugar and fat makes Ben & Jerry's one of the least forgiving indulgences you can buy. The worst part? The branding makes it feel playful and harmless. Quirky names, peace signs, and Vermont cows hide the fact that eating just half a pint puts you over your sugar limit for the day. Ben & Jerry's is fun, sure, but it's also a nutritional nightmare. Number 15, Crystal Farms. Crystal Farms isn't a household name like Kraft, but you've definitely seen it in the dairy aisle, especially in Midwestern grocery stores. Bright blue packaging, bargain prices, and endless bags of shredded cheese, slices, and snack sticks. It's the kind of brand people grab without thinking, because it looks like cheese and costs a little less than the big names. But here's the problem. Crystal Farms is less about dairy and more about fillers. Flip over the label on their shredded blends, and you'll find anti-caking agents like potato starch and cellulose powder. Not inherently dangerous, but a far cry from the simplicity of just milk, cultures, salt, and enzymes. Their singles and processed slices push it further, loaded with emulsifiers, added oils, and sky-high sodium levels to keep everything shelf-stable and melt-ready. That cheap price tag? It comes from cutting corners, stretching milk with additives until you're left with something that behaves like cheese without actually being cheese. Crystal Farms thrives on being the budget option, but cheap dairy isn't harmless dairy. Number 14, Frigo Cheese Heads. Remember when a piece of cheese was just cheese? You cut a slice off the block, maybe paired it with some crackers, and that was that. These days, brands like Frigo Cheese Heads think we need our cheese paired up with processed meats and candy-coated nuts, all wrapped in plastic and sold as a snack combo. It's convenience at the expense of common sense. Take a look at one of their combos packs. You're staring at around 220 calories in just a few bites, with 13 grams of fat, 9 grams of protein, and nearly 500 milligrams of sodium. That's about a quarter of your daily sodium allowance gone before you've even sat down to dinner. And that's not counting the preservatives and stabilizers added to keep both the cheese and the meat shelf-stable for weeks on end. The problem isn't just the numbers, it's the idea. They've taken something as simple as cheese and turned it into another ultra-processed convenience food, loaded with salt and packaged like junk food. For anyone trying to eat cleaner, these little packs are proof that not every snack size option is smart. Number 13, Horizon Organic. Horizon Organic is one of those brands a lot of us have trusted without thinking twice. The word organic is right there on the carton, the cows on the label look happy, and it feels like the safer choice compared to the brightly colored junk in the aisle. But here's the part that doesn't sit right with me. They're flavored milks, especially the chocolate. One cup carries about 22 to 25 grams of sugar. That's roughly the same as eating a candy bar, only you're drinking it under the impression it's healthy. And it's not just chocolate. Their strawberry and vanilla cartons are loaded the same way. Yes, the milk itself is organic, no hormones, no antibiotics, and that's a good thing. But when you pack in that much sugar, the organic label starts to feel like a distraction more than a benefit. What bothers me most is how it's marketed. Parents toss it in lunchboxes thinking it's a smart choice, and older folks pick it up because it feels wholesome. But when you look past the packaging, Horizon isn't as clean as it wants you to believe. Sometimes organic is just a nicer way of selling you the same sugar rush. Number 12, Daisy. Everybody knows Daisy. The red flower logo, the do a dollop of Daisy jingle, the sour cream tubs stacked in every grocery store. For years, I didn't even think twice about tossing one in my cart. It feels safe, simple, familiar. But here's the thing. Once you actually look at the numbers, Daisy isn't nearly as innocent as it looks. Take their cottage cheese. Just half a cup packs around 460 milligrams of sodium. That's almost 20% of your daily limit gone in a few spoonfuls. And nobody eats half a cup and calls it a day. Their sour cream is marketed as pure and natural, and yeah, it's just cream, but that also means 5 grams of saturated fat in 2 tablespoons. A few dollops on tacos or potatoes, and you've knocked out a quarter of your recommended daily max. That's what bothers me. Daisy hides behind the simple, wholesome vibe, when in reality, it's an easy way to overload on sodium and saturated fat without even realizing it. Number 11. Blue Bunny. Blue Bunny is one of those ice cream brands that's been sitting in freezers for generations. The name sounds cheerful, the cartons look playful, and the price is usually a little better than the so-called premium pints. On the surface, it feels like a safe, all-American treat. But once you start paying attention to what's inside, the story changes. A lot of Blue Bunny flavors lean heavy on corn syrup, gums, and stabilizers to get that creamy texture. Instead of being built on real cream, it's a cheaper recipe stretched with additives. Some tubs don't even meet the FDA's definition of ice cream. They fall into the frozen dairy dessert category, which is just a fancy way of saying cut-rate ingredients. And nutritionally, a single serving can hit you with 20 plus grams of sugar and plenty of calories, and let's be honest, nobody eats just half a cup. That's the problem. Blue Bunny presents itself like a family classic, but what you're really bringing home is a cost-cutting version of ice cream bulked up with fillers. Number 10. Lucerne. You've probably noticed Lucerne if you shop at Safeway or Albertsons. It's the plain, no-frills dairy brand that shows up everywhere: milk, cheese, ice cream. And a lot of us have tossed it in the cart without thinking twice, because it looks simple enough and the price is decent. But if you've ever taken a closer look at the labels, you might have felt the same letdown I did. Their chocolate milk, for example, just 1 cup runs about 24 grams of sugar. That's basically like drinking a soda, only it's dressed up as milk. Their strawberry version isn't any better. And the cheese? Those bags of shredded cheddar and mozzarella aren't just cheese. They're padded with potato starch and cellulose powder to keep it from clumping, plus extra sodium that adds up fast. Even the ice cream doesn't always qualify as ice cream. A lot of it is labeled frozen dairy dessert, which is code for corn syrup, gums, and cheap fillers instead of cream. It's frustrating, because Lucerne feels like it should be the safe, everyday choice. Number 9. TruMoo. TruMoo is one of those brands a lot of parents and grandparents recognize from school cafeterias and grocery shelves. It's pitched as the better flavored milk, a safer choice than soda. And at first glance, that sounds reasonable. After all, it's milk, right? Calcium, protein, the whole deal. But if you've ever looked at the nutrition facts, you probably had the same reaction I did. This isn't much better at all. 1 small carton of TruMoo chocolate milk carries close to 30 grams of sugar. That's nearly on par with a can of cola. Sure, the protein is still there, but the sugar hit cancels out a lot of the benefit. The strawberry flavor doesn't fare any better. It's just the same sugar rush in a pink carton. And that's what stings. The brand is sold as school approved, something you can feel good about, when really it's just another sweetened drink with a dairy label slapped on the front. You're not crazy if you've ever felt like TruMoo's image is healthier than the product itself, because the numbers prove it. Number 8. Clearfield. Clearfield is one of those brands that slips into the cart because it's cheap and looks close enough to the real thing. Big packs of orange slices, easy for sandwiches or burgers, and you figure why not? But once you taste it, the flavor is bland, the texture is rubbery, and it leaves that strange aftertaste that real cheese never does. And the reason is right there on the label. Clearfield singles aren't even legally allowed to be called cheese. They're sold as pasteurized prepared cheese product. That's because they're padded with emulsifiers, vegetable oils, and stabilizers instead of just milk, cultures, and salt. 1 slice carries about 250 milligrams of sodium, which doesn't sound like much until you realize people stack 2 or 3 on a sandwich, and suddenly you've eaten nearly a third of the recommended daily limit in 1 sitting. Protein and calcium, the things you expect from cheese, take a back seat to fillers. So yes, Clearfield saves you $1 at the checkout. But what you're really paying for is a lab-engineered slice that looks like cheese and tastes like compromise. Number 7. Polly-O. Polly-O is one of those names that carries weight, especially if you've got Italian roots or grew up on the East Coast. The commercials made it feel like the real deal. String cheese for the kids, ricotta for Sunday lasagna, mozzarella that claimed to be authentic Italian. For a lot of families, polio was tradition. But here's the hard truth. The polio in today's grocery aisle isn't the polio your parents or grandparents trusted. Over the years, the brand changed hands. It's now owned by a massive global dairy company, and with that shift came the shortcuts. That authentic mozzarella? It's bulked up with preservatives like natamycin to sit longer on the shelf. The ricotta that used to feel fresh and clean, too often padded with gums and stabilizers instead of just milk and whey. Even the string cheese is more rubbery filler than dairy craftsmanship. Polio leans on its Brooklyn heritage to make you feel like you're buying tradition. But in reality, you're getting a product that's been watered down by big business and corner cutting. Number 6, Edie's or Dryers. Edie's on the East Coast, Dryers on the West. Different names, same tubs in the freezer. For years, they've been selling the idea that you don't have to feel guilty about eating ice cream. Slow churned, light, half the fat. It all sounds like the perfect compromise. The taste you love without the baggage. But if you've ever eaten it and thought, this doesn't taste like the real thing, you weren't imagining it. The trick is in the recipe. Instead of rich cream and sugar, you're getting corn syrup, gums, and reprocessed milk solids spun together to mimic ice cream texture. And while the label brags about fewer calories, a half cup still carries 18 to 20 grams of sugar, which doesn't exactly scream light. The smaller portions make the math look better, but we all know nobody eats just half a cup. Edie's/Dryers built its image on giving families a smarter dessert. But what's really in the carton is a cut-down version of ice cream that feels more like a shortcut than a treat. Number 5, President. When you spot President in the dairy case, the fancy foil-wrapped brie, the tubs of feta, the little camembert wheels, it feels like you're buying a touch of Europe. The packaging screams authentic, and the price tag makes you think it must be better than the average block of cheese. A lot of us have picked it up thinking, hey, this is the good stuff. But if you've ever tasted it and felt a little underwhelmed, you're not alone. Here's why. The President you get in US grocery stores isn't the same as what you'd find in France. To survive the long trip and sit on shelves for weeks, it's often bulked up with stabilizers, preservatives, and modified milk ingredients that real French cheesemakers wouldn't dream of adding. The brie and camembert lack the ripeness and richness you'd expect, and the feta often leans more salty and rubbery than fresh. It's a classic case of marketing outpacing reality. President looks and prices itself like luxury, but once you dig in, it's really just another mass-produced cheese dressed up in fancy clothes. Number 4, Mayfield. I'll be honest, I used to think Mayfield was one of the good guys. The yellow jugs, the red barn, the whole family farm image, it just feels safer than the big corporate names. But once you actually start checking labels, you realize Mayfield's playing the same game as everybody else. Their chocolate milk, 25 to 28 grams of sugar in a single cup. That's basically soda in disguise. Strawberry milk? Same story. And the ice cream? Don't even get me started. A flavor like Moose Tracks will hit you with 300 plus calories and over 25 grams of sugar in half a cup. Half a cup! Who eats half a cup? You blink and you've eaten double that without even trying. What gets me is how hard they lean on nostalgia. They want you to picture cows grazing on a Tennessee farm, but what you're actually buying is sugar, gums, and preservatives with a country-style logo slapped on top. It's one of those brands that makes you feel like you're making a safe choice, until you realize it's just processed dairy hiding behind tradition. Number 3, Friendlies. If you grew up on the East Coast, you probably remember Friendlies as that place you went after a little league game or a family dinner. The sundaes, the fribbles, the whole ice cream with a smile thing. That nostalgia runs deep, which is exactly why the tubs of Friendlies ice cream in the grocery store feel so comforting. But here's the letdown. The stuff in the carton today is a far cry from the treat you remember as a kid. Look at the label and it's obvious. A single serving of their signature flavors like cookies and cream piles on over 20 grams of sugar and close to 300 calories. And again, that's the tiny half-cup serving nobody actually sticks to. And instead of just cream and sugar, you're staring at corn syrup, gums, and stabilizers that stretch the product and cut costs. Some flavors don't even meet the FDA standard for ice cream anymore. They slide into the frozen dairy dessert category, which is just a nice way of saying corner-cutting recipe. Number 2, Chobani. I'll admit it, when Greek yogurt first blew up, I was all in on Chobani. The packaging looked clean, it felt healthier than the neon-colored Yoplaits, and every store from Walmart to Costco had it stacked floor to ceiling. It almost felt like the smart choice, like I was finally eating something good for me. But then you actually start paying attention, and that's when it clicks. This stuff isn't as innocent as it looks. Go grab one of their flip cups, the ones with Oreos, brownie bits, or cookie dough in the corner. The nutrition label will smack you with 20+ grams of sugar in a 6-ounce cup. That's basically dessert, except I was eating it for breakfast thinking I was being healthy. Even the plain strawberry cup runs around 15 to 17 grams of sugar. And the creamers? Check the label. They've got added oils and gums in there to fake the texture. What bugs me most is how hard they push the whole "we're independent, family-owned, we're not like the big guys" image. Number 1. Kraft Heinz. Kraft Heinz is everywhere, Kraft Singles, Velveeta, Lunchables, but the one brand people rarely question is Philadelphia cream cheese. That silver foil block feels untouchable, like the safe dairy choice. But once you start looking closer, it's not as clean as the image they've sold us for decades. The plain block is simple enough: cream, milk, salt. But move to the tubs, and it's a whole different product. The strawberry spread packs 6 grams of sugar in just 2 tablespoons. The whipped versions rely on xanthan and guar gum to fake texture. Even the light cream cheese still has 4 grams of fat per tablespoon, plus the same stabilizers. It's not the healthier swap it pretends to be. That's what bothers me, the way Kraft Heinz hides behind the Philadelphia name. We trust it automatically, on bagels, in dips, cheesecakes, without realizing the flavored and whipped tubs are heavily engineered. Philadelphia isn't some old-fashioned cream cheese anymore. It's another Kraft Heinz product dressed up as tradition. Thankfully, however, not all brands are ones you should actively avoid getting in your fridge, because here are 10 you should be on the lookout for, starting with number 10, Organic Valley. Every time I see Organic Valley in the dairy aisle, I feel like this is one of the few brands actually trying to do it right. And I don't just mean slapping the word organic on the carton. The numbers back it up. This isn't a giant corporation, it's a farmer-owned co-op with over 1,600 small family farms behind it. Their milk is USDA organic, no GMOs, no antibiotics, no artificial growth hormones. That's already a step above the usual suspects. But here's where it gets interesting. Because their cows are pasture-raised, their whole milk has been shown to contain about 50% more omega-3 fatty acids than conventional milk, along with a better omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. That matters for heart health, inflammation, and brain function. And when you taste it, you notice the difference. The fat content feels richer, the flavor cleaner. It's one of the rare times where the marketing actually lines up with reality. With Organic Valley, you're not just paying for a label, you're getting dairy that's measurably healthier than the mainstream stuff. Number 9, Stonyfield Organic. When I first started looking for healthier yogurt, I noticed how almost every cup in the aisle was loaded with sugar or artificial junk. Stonyfield stood out because it actually felt cleaner, and once you check the label, the difference is real. This brand was pushing USDA organic and non-GMO before most people even cared, and it shows in the numbers. Organic dairies like Stonyfield's have been found to carry about 30 to 35% fewer pesticide residues than conventional milk sources. Their cows aren't dosed with growth hormones or routine antibiotics, and the milk just tastes fresher because of it. But what really sold me was the probiotic content. A cup of Stonyfield isn't just dairy, it comes with live cultures. I don't let that word scare you, I basically just mean the good kinds of bacteria like L. acidophilus, bifidus, and L. casei, which support digestion and gut health. Compare that to sugary yogurt desserts like Yoplait, and it's night and day. Not every product is perfect, but Stonyfield makes it easy to grab something that actually feels good for you, without wondering what's hiding in the fine print. Number 8, Maple Hill. Most dairy brands love to slap grass-fed on the label like it's some trendy buzzword. But Maple Hill is one of the few that actually lives up to it. Their entire line is 100% grass-fed and USDA organic, not just a side product. That means their cows aren't eating corn or soy fillers, they're literally on pasture year-round. And you can taste and see the difference. Their milk and yogurt have that richer, creamier flavor, but the real story is in the nutrition. Studies on grass-fed milk show it carries about 62% more omega-3 fatty acids, and nearly twice the conjugated linoleic acid compared to conventional milk. Both are linked to heart health, reduced inflammation, and better metabolic balance. Maple Hill consistently ranks higher in that omega-3 to omega-6 ratio, which is one of the key markers for healthier dairy. So while most grass-fed cartons bend the truth, Maple Hill actually delivers on it. This is one of the rare brands where the marketing doesn't just check out, it over-delivers. Number 7. Nancy's. If you've ever spotted Nancy's in the yogurt aisle, you know it doesn't scream flashy, no cartoon mascots, no wild colors, but that's kind of the point. This brand has been around since the 1960s, family run, and they were talking probiotics before anyone else even knew what the word meant. What sets them apart is the actual culture count. A single serving of Nancy's yogurt can carry over 50 billion live CFUs from strains like L. acidophilus, bifidus, and L. casei. Compare that to most big brands, which hover closer to 1 to 6 billion, and you realize you're getting a completely different level of gut health support. Their kefirs push those numbers even higher, making them one of the strongest probiotic dairy options you can buy. They're not as flashy or as shelf-dominant as Chobani or Yoplait, so depending on your store, you might only see a couple of flavors, sometimes just plain and vanilla. But if you find Nancy's, you're getting one of the cleanest, most probiotic-rich yogurts on the market. It's the quiet brand that actually delivers. Number 6. Most yogurts in the grocery store aisle are basically desserts in disguise, loaded with sugar, thickeners, and artificial flavors. That's why Siggi's caught my attention. The packaging looks simple, and for once, the inside matches the outside. A typical cup of Siggi's Vanilla Skyer has only 11 grams of sugar and 15 to 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a Yoplait strawberry cup with 18 to 20 grams of sugar and just 5 grams of protein, and the difference is night and day. They don't use artificial sweeteners, thickeners, or colors, so the texture comes from actual milk and straining, not gums or starches. And it's not some niche brand hiding in health stores anymore. Siggi's is in tens of thousands of stores nationwide. Walmart, Target, Kroger, Whole Foods, Costco. That means you don't have to go hunting for it. For once, here's a brand that doesn't dress yogurt up like candy. It's straightforward, filling, and honestly makes the rest of the aisle look embarrassing. Number 5. Colona Supernatural. Colona Supernatural isn't the kind of brand you see piled high in every Walmart cooler, and honestly, that's part of the appeal. You usually find it tucked into the organic section at Whole Foods or in smaller co-ops, and sometimes you have to hunt a little for it. But when you do, it's worth it. Colona takes a totally different approach. Their milk and cream are USDA organic, 100% grass-fed, and non-homogenized. That means the cream literally rises to the top, the way milk used to be before everything got industrialized. They also pasteurize at lower temperatures, which helps preserve natural enzymes and fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, and K2. Nutritionally, grass-fed milk like theirs carries up to 62% more omega-3 fatty acids than conventional brands, plus a better omega-3 to omega-6 balance for heart and brain health. It's not always easy to find, but that's the trade-off. You're getting real, minimally processed dairy from smaller family farms, not a factory pipeline. For me, Colona is one of those rare brands that actually feels like milk should. Number 4. Strauss. If you live out west, you've probably seen Strauss in the glass bottles sitting in the cooler, and once you try it, it's hard to go back. This isn't one of those giant national brands. Strauss is a family creamery out of California that became the first 100% certified organic creamery in the US back in 1994. Here's why it stands out. Their cows are pasture-raised, and the milk is non-homogenized, so the cream rises naturally to the top. Nutritionally, studies show that organic pasture-based dairies like Strauss have higher omega-3 fatty acids and about 7% more beta-carotene than conventional milk, which is why their butter has that deep golden color. They also keep their processing minimal. No weird additives, no synthetic hormones, just low-temp pasteurization that preserves more of the natural flavor and vitamins. Now, it's true Strauss isn't in every store. You'll find it mostly on the West Coast, though some natural food markets carry it elsewhere. But when you do find it, it feels like what milk should taste like. Simple, clean, and real. Number 3. Clover Sonoma. Clover Sonoma is one of those brands you actually feel good about picking up. It's not just marketing. They back it up with real standards. For starters, Clover was the first U.S. dairy to become American Humane certified, meaning their cows are treated under stricter welfare guidelines than the average herd. They're also B Corp certified, which is rare in the dairy aisle, so they're legally committed to balancing profit with social and environmental responsibility. On the nutrition side, their milk is RBST and RBGH-free in English, basically meaning no synthetic growth hormones, and non-GMO project verified. That's not just a label, it means third-party checks on feed and sourcing. And because their cows spend more time on pasture, their milk carries higher levels of omega-3 seconds compared to conventional dairy. Even their packaging is ahead of the curve. They rolled out the first fully renewable milk carton in the U.S. For me, Clover Sonoma feels different because the transparency is right there. You're not just buying milk, you're buying from a company that actually shows you how it's made. Number 2, Horizon Organic. Now, I know what you're thinking. Didn't we already drag Horizon for loading their chocolate and strawberry milks with sugar? And yes, we did, because those flavored cartons are basically candy bars in disguise. But here's the catch. Not every Horizon product is a disaster. When you stick to their plain organic milk, the numbers actually hold up. A cup of Horizon whole milk gives you 8 grams of protein, 25% of your daily calcium, and 30% of your daily vitamin D with 0 added sugar. It's USDA organic, which means no GMOs, no synthetic hormones, and no routine antibiotics. That matters because tests have shown organic dairies like Horizon's supply chain deliver lower pesticide residues and higher omega-3 fatty acid levels compared to conventional milk. So the rule here is simple. Skip the sugar bomb cartons, but if you grab plain Horizon, you're getting a clean, consistent organic milk that beats the generic jugs most of us grew up on. It's not perfect, but it's definitely not all bad either. Number 1, Green Valley Creamery. If you've ever had to give up dairy because it made you feel awful, Green Valley Creamery is like a lifesaver. Unlike most brands that just throw in lactose-free as an afterthought, this company built their whole line around it. They use a natural lactase enzyme to break down the lactose, so people with lactose intolerance can enjoy yogurt, kefir, sour cream, even cottage cheese without the stomachache. And the best part? They didn't cut corners on nutrition to get there. A cup of their plain lactose-free yogurt delivers 12 grams of protein and billions of live active cultures, including 10 different probiotic strains. Their cottage cheese and sour cream also come in at about 15% less sodium than mainstream brands like Daisy or Breakstones, which makes a real difference if you're watching blood pressure. Everything is USDA organic, non-GMO, and certified gluten-free. Green Valley isn't the flashiest brand in the aisle, but it's one of the only ones that proves lactose-free can still mean clean, probiotic-rich, and genuinely healthy dairy.